Good evening, America. I've decided to switch formats. I started last week, and I'm going to continue with a, a different approach. I really would like questions about Judaism, about philosophy. Even if it's not my specialty, I'll tell you, and I won't be able to answer, but rather than coming with specific topics. Remember, I've done How to Make America Good Again. I've looked at the 613 Commandments. I've picked topics on Wednesday nights. However, I would like to use a little different format, and that's more like an open talk show, only you can't phone in. I haven't figured out how to do that yet. And so, anyone that would like to co-host with me, rabbiblock@hotmail.com, and we'll co-host next Wednesday night. So that's open to anyone that's listening. I'd like to start with a quote I saw in an article I was reading, and I wrote the quote down, didn't write where it came from. If the path before you is clear, you're probably on someone else's path. I think that really is significant for those of us on spiritual journeys, and we're all on a spiritual journey. We may not recognize it at the moment. We may not acknowledge it. However, at some point, we're going to look around and go, what is the meaning of life? What is the meaning in death? Is there anything after this material experience? And so, a path. And it's just a really neat warning, because if it's that clear, it's not you. You're walking someone else's path. Now, why not convert to Christianity? Good question, John. And I want to rephrase that, and it goes along with my idea of choosing your path. Examine the different paths, and then choose the one that resonates with you. Choose the one that you can identify with, not because someone recommended it, not because someone said it was the best or it's right and all the others are wrong. That's a good reason not to pay attention. Rather, choose. And if you have no particular faith at the moment, pick one. Follow something. It's not a lifetime commitment. It's not a weekly, monthly. You can decide, I think I'm going to become Anglican. Roman Catholicism is a little too tight, a little too strict, a little too controlled. I like some of the ideas, so I'm going to become an Anglican, an Episcopalian, because it really follows a lot of the teachings of the Roman Catholic Church, but with no pope, with no cardinals per se. It's not quite as stringent. And then after a while you say, this path isn't mine. This path doesn't work for me. Then try another path. Try another way. At this time in my life, I do not keep kosher. I did for 10, 15, 20 odd years. And I do observe the Sabbath. I wrote about it in my book, How to Be Jewish in 30 Seconds. I'm not what you would call Shomer Shabbos. I believe the Sabbath is a day to be set aside from all your other days. A day of meditation, a day of rest, a day of relaxation. I do not believe that observance of the Sabbath was dictated 5,000 years ago. What I see in the Talmud, what I see in the Midrash, what I see in the Torah is just that, a time out. And the people did what made sense to them then for time out. They didn't have electronics. They didn't have carry out. They didn't have food delivery. There's lots of things that didn't exist. So of course they're not going to talk about them or discuss them. So we don't want to get bogged down in the details of the Torah that are time and place. Rather, we want to see the truth. The truth is, each of us should set aside a time to stop. Go for a walk. Go to the park. Take the dog to a dog park. Join with family and friends. Go to worship services on the Sabbath. If that resonates, if that helps you relax. But don't do it just because some old guy with a beard said you should. And that's exactly why this quote resonated with me. If the path is clear to you, you're probably walking someone else's path. King Vaughn, email me, rabbiblock@hotmail.com, and we'll co-host next week. Okay? Email me and I'll send you my Zoom room, and we can discuss. Do you believe politically the state of Israel? No. I don't think anyone has infiltrated the U.S. government. I think our government is very much self-serving. I think many in our government are concerned with the democracy, are concerned with you and me. I also think that many involved in the government are looking out for themselves and a way to use the government to make money. Now, do you stand with Israel or Palestine? Let me ask you this. Have you stopped beating your partner? Answer yes or no. The way you phrase the question makes it mutually exclusive. You have to pick. I've mentioned before, there should be a Palestine, not based on the destruction of Israel, not filled with hate and armies and missiles, but like Israel and Egypt, like Israel and Jordan, to cooperate and to support each other. And I don't support Israel's politics. The war in Gaza has really gotten out of control. And let's put blame where it belongs, Iran. Hezbollah is entirely funded by Iran. And Iran, I believe in a Kurdistan. The Kurdish people should have a country of Kurdistan. And that's another example, like Armenia and what the Greece genocide against the Armenians. There's no question. It was genocide against the Armenians. There are groups of people that share views and ideas that should have their own country. The Basques, the Kurds, the Armenians. And at this point, the displaced people of Palestine, we should have a country, but a country that's not based on destroying another country, and a country that's not funded by Iran. And Hamas is funded by Iran. Iran is the instigator and the problem. In Yemen, it's Iran. All over the Middle East. In Lebanon, it's Iran. Iran is supporting. Now, someone just said, do you believe in Jesus? Please rephrase that question. Jesus, if you will, was a Pharisaic, apocalyptic, itinerant teacher, like myself, living at a time of great turmoil. And his teachings are very Jewish. Rabbi Gamliel was one of his teachers. So we would expect Jesus to be teaching. And keep in mind that Jesus didn't start Christianity. Paul started Christianity. The Council of Nicaea continued the process. And so if we want to take a look at what I like to call naked Judaism, naked Christianity, which means taking off the clothes of later politicians, commentators, and writers, and take a look at the Sermon on the Mount, the Beatitudes. Take a look at what the Gospels and also the other documents, but not the epistles of Paul, because that's Paul writing. That's not Jesus talking. And take a look at the teachings and see if that's your path. Why you have to make that decision. And we need to take a look at Jesus' life as his life, and again, not what Paul said, not what they said at the Council of Nicaea. You know, the virgin birth did not exist till the Council of Nicaea. Hell did not exist in Christianity till Agante wrote the about hell. I'm having a senior moment here. Dante, till Dante wrote, hell didn't exist because it doesn't exist in Judaism. It didn't exist in Christianity. It was a much later development. Do a little research. Look into it. Can't help it. But Dante, his writings had such a great effect that the church adopted it. Virgin birth is not there. Hell is not in the Gospels. And that's what I'm asking us to do with Judaism as well. And that's what I do in my book, How to Be Jewish in 30 Seconds, is let's take a look at Judaism. Not what somebody said, not even what I say. Let's, there are some songs about getting back to basics. And the Baptist movement at one point was to get back at basics. But as many other religions encountered, they went along with what someone said, instead of getting back to the basic religion, the basic teachings. And it's there for us. Now, can't read Hebrew, can't read Connie Greek, okay, then find a decent translation. The King James translation, it's not a translation. Read the page where it says, it's King James started a committee because he wanted some changes in the philosophy and the theology. And so it's an interpretation understanding. And the internet makes it really easy for us. One can go online and compare all different translations for 10 verses, a chapter, whatever we want, and we can see how each interprets the Greek or the Hebrew. That's all I'm asking us to do, is take a look at yourself. Now, current Jews aren't biblical Jews. That's a partially true statement, because we don't live agriculturally. The temple doesn't exist. But keep in mind, the Torah is truth and it's not true. Don't get bogged down in the cultural details of the biblical period, because they didn't have what we have, and we live a very different life. What we want to look at is the idea of the one. I'll use the word God, but biblically, it's acknowledging one. And certainly, I'm living biblical Judaism. I accept the one. Now, to say, I don't wear sandals. No, I don't. Sandals aren't really practical here in D.C., especially in the winter. So wearing the clothes biblically makes no sense. Eating crushed grains and honey with very little meat at all isn't really a healthy diet for an 80-year-old. So again, let's be careful not to look at the cultural climate elements and think that's religion, but let's look at the teaching. What is being taught? Makes me a Hebrew. Hebrew. From across the river. Coming from a different place. Following a path of the one. That's what it means to be a Hebrew. That's what it means to be a Jew. And in the same way, you don't want to look at Christians and go, well, they're not wearing sandals, they're not wearing robes, but that's not what Christianity is about. That's not, we don't want to focus on the portraits of Jesus, by the way, are 180 degrees from what a Semitic Jew of the biblical period would have looked like. It's a Western interpretation of wanting Jesus to look like us, wanting Moses to look like us, wanting God to look like us. We want God to have attributes like us. That's why I like the term the one. Not a being, but one. All part of the one. And someone just said the Jews are known to play all sides in history. I don't think that's unique to Jews. I think that's unique to any group of people that survives a different culture, that survives differences that are going on. And the idea of scapegoating or blaming, it's very tempting. You know, I mentioned this on my YouTube channel. On my computer in the hospital, above my, I had this little sign on my computer. And of course, for most of us, when we go into work, the first thing is we log on, we check email, we see what happened to our patients, we read charts, we do things, but it's all on the computer before we go on the wards. And so my little sign says, you're going to have a good day because you found someone to blame for the mistakes you made yesterday. And that's what many of you are pointing out with your questions. Scapegoating, blaming, rather than pushing back and taking a look at historic circumstances, events of everybody. Kabbalah, the Jewish mystic tradition. It's not the only truth. However, the Jewish mystics found their way to unite with the one. It's not the only way. What they did is they introduced us to the idea that everything's interconnected, that everything is one. There is only one God, many ways of understanding God. I don't follow UFC fighting. Yeah, well, if you want a question, an answer to the question about God and Judaism, the Jewish approach, we get this from the Talmud, from the Midrash, from all our teachers, is you wrestling with a power outside yourself. And I like the AA term higher power because the word God carries some connotations, definitions with it. So each of us goes, like if I say dog, each of us conjures up a particular breed or kind rather than the word dog's generic. But as human beings, we concretize it. And so when we talk about God, each of us conjures up something and we either agree or disagree or argue with it. Put that aside, and the answer to the question about what does Judaism say about God, it's you wrestling with your understanding of a power, a one, a being outside of yourself. The universe was here before any of us were born. God willing, it'll be here after we all leave this mortal coil. So I'm not the center of the universe. Neither are you. And so let's call the power outside ourselves God. Don't attach anything to it. But that's why I like AA's higher power, because it gets us away from a specific view and lets me wrestle with the one. When I listen to the news, oh, Kim, email me. You're hosting with me next week. As long as I get an email from you and we go to my Zoom room, we'll pick our topic and we'll see how we relate to each other. I really gets lonely. You know, I feel like the Maytag repairman sometimes. It's very, very lonely. The same to you, Elijah. It's very lonely here. I would love your company for next week. And Shauna, same thing to all of you. God, a being, a power outside of us. Now, let's wrestle, let's think, let's discuss. And keep it fluid, meaning it's going to change. I don't have the same beliefs about my parents, about anything that I had when I was 3, 4, 5, 30. As we get older, we have more experiences with the world, with the external world, with the internal world. What do I think about William Blake? I'm not sure I've thought much about William Blake. You're going to have to help me. What specifically are you asking about William Blake? So why would I have the same beliefs about God at 80 that I had when I was a 3-year-old? It wouldn't make any sense. Because I've had more experiences. I've come in contact with more religions. I have discussed with more people. So, of course, like driving, like skiing, like anything. The more experience we have, we may not always be better, but our experiences changes how we do, how we approach baseball, football, any sport. There's a big difference between watching college rookies and seasoned players. Seasoned is the word. That's the word. And so we want to approach our understanding of God as a seasoned person. We've had more experiences with life and death, with joy and sorrow. And that's going to change how I approach, how I see. I have both rheumatoid arthritis, which is an autoimmune disease, and osteoarthritis that comes with old age. I have it in my hands. One of the things that makes me feel more comfortable is rubbing my hands. It increases the blood flow. It really slows the pain, stops the pain. So I often rub my hands. Not because I'm worried, not because I'm upset or anything. Pure and simple, I have both forms of arthritis in my fingers. And massaging them, just like if you stub your toe or you hit your leg against the table, you're going to start rubbing it because it feels better. Increasing blood flow. It alleviates the pain. And it's the same with the arthritis. So often, and I learned this many years ago in teaching and preaching, when someone said to me, am I nervous or worried? I'm always rubbing my hands, and I realized, not that. It purely is because the pain in my joints from the 2 forms of arthritis. And those of you who have arthritis or have grandparents or parents, you're aware of that the rubber massaging helps. And again, that's why when we bang ourselves, we'll massage ourselves. Is it anti-Semitic if we stop funding Israel? That's something I've been wrestling with, and I see it all the time. I see much anti-Israel as anti-Semitism. I don't see it directed at the politics of Israel. I don't see it as something political. I see it as a disguise. You don't want to really admit that you're anti-Semitic, that you hate Jews, that for whatever your hypothetical reasons are. And so you focus on Israel to try to make it legitimate. And so I see two distinct things. I am not thrilled with the Israeli government. I don't think that defunding is the answer. I think the answer may be controlling funding or having strings attached to the funding. I don't categorically, in fact, historically, it's a big mistake. The more we are economically involved in a country, the more control we have. And the same thing applies to you, by the way, with your job, with your parents, and with your children, and being a child. Whoever controls the purse strings has the power. And cutting it off, then, you have no more control. Defunding is not the answer to anything. Rather, it is to take a look. And AIPAC is a lobbyist group. I do not support it. I'm not in favor of a lot of things that they lobby, so I don't support them. But we have a tire lobby. You know, the copper lobby was standing in the way of eliminating pennies. That was the one thing that why we kept producing pennies that cost more than a penny. And Baruch Hashem, President Trump, got rid of the penny. Cut costs. Don't need it. The cost of producing a penny exceeded the value. But the copy lobbyists were so strong and were putting so much money into political campaigns that we kept the penny around. And finally, President Trump just said, must speak. It's enough. Let's cut out the penny. And so it's the same with AIPAC. It's a lobby. Don't have to listen to it. Unfortunately, our politics works on money. Money talks, and people walk. Well, we're coming up to the end of our time together, and I would be remiss talking of money, but more important than that is how to be Jewish in 30 seconds. It's about truth without getting bogged down in picayune details that are tied to climate or latitude, if you will. Someone is doing a really nice series on living in Alaska, and I'm really enjoying watching what the food costs and the oil and the temperature and things, because a lot of what I think of Alaska is more fantasy than real. And that's why I highly recommend my book, How to Be Jewish in 30 Seconds. And for those of you who are asking questions about Judaism, you'll find your answers here. And for those of you who want to blame Jews or scapegoat Jews because you think that's a convenient... Oh, I like everyone. And there's some people I don't like. It has nothing to do with a category about liking Christians. I respect people that follow their beliefs. I respect people that live Jesus, that follow the Sermon on the Mount and the Beatitudes. Yeah, true converts may have a larger share in the Olam Haba because they chose Judaism. And with any religion, we find that those who choose, we call them converts, but those who choose to join a religion generally have some really neat, positive things to say. Well, our time is up. Please, my YouTube channel, The Rabbi and I, here on TikTok. Thank you, and I'll see everyone next Wednesday night live at 8.